Hello. I took a break, but now I'm back. Today we're doing one of my favorite episodes from the whole series, and this is also one that I think is just objectively one of the best episodes in general. It ought to be obvious what I'm talking about because you clicked on the video and saw the title or whatever, but it's Who Can Put on the Better Concert. Maybe it's because I haven't done this in a while, or maybe it's because I just think the episode's so great. There's not much to say, but I'm a little nervous about doing it justice. Not exactly sure where to start. I guess we'll start at the beginning. Especially later on in the series, the discussion on the couch or of the rules comes back to bite Spenny in some way, so I always listen closely to that.
It has to be an original composition, and you have to perform it live, in concert.
So Spenny says that it has to be original, but he doesn't say Kenny has to actually write it. He also says that it has to be live, which means that when, spoiler alert, Kenny gets his band to not show up, Spenny can't just show the judges a tape, and he has to do his little a cappella jig.
I am going to jump into a fantasy I've always had, which is being the front man, a lead singer of a rock and roll band. This is an opportunity to do that and beat Kenny at the same time.
I think this is the first Kenny shaves as he starts his journey through the competition segment. I think I mentioned shaving when Spenny was shaving in the beauty pageant episode. God, it's been so long, I'm sorry. This commentary is just not going to be as good as the actual episode. Just turn this off and watch the actual episode, because we're 2 minutes in and I'm just talking about people shaving.
Going to pick Spenny over a group of children who are going to bust out crying if they do not win.
I'm just repeating myself now, but you know I love old computers and Kenny at his computer. It looks like it's like an HP Pavilion. It was probably between 50 and 100 gigs in the hard drive, maybe half a gig of RAM at the time. And then this, I think, is the first appearance, or first real appearance of Brendan, who becomes one of the core crew. And as the show goes on, we grow to know and love the crew, as well as Kenny and Spenny. And then there's kind of a comfy parasocial thing there. So this is the first time that we really meet Brendan, and he's obviously very smiley and charming and talented. Kenny is playing GameCube on a wireless controller. The model of that controller is referred to as a Wavebird. Those were bundled with Metroid Prime, which is what I would guess Kenny is playing, just based on the year and his taste. And then Brendan's computer is an iMac G4, which is fancy compared to the big fat heavy iMac G3, the thing with the translucent backs. I think Brendan's shirt says The Warhols, which may or may not refer to the same band as the Dandy Warhols. I'm not a music guy. Does anyone recognize that? We're going to get another band shirt in a second.
I eat, sleep, bleed, and breathe rock and roll.
Spenny's season 1 cowlick, like the spike in his hair, is like fully erect in this segment. And once you notice it, it's kind of hard not to. So here's another band shirt. Matt is wearing an Armor for Sleep shirt, which would have been very hip at the time because that band would have just released their first album, Dream to Make Believe. I like that Jeff looks like he could be like a grade school teacher. It contrasts him against the other people that Spenny picks. Also, Spenny's handwriting is atrocious. I can tell he didn't like someone named Andrew, at least. I promise I will start talking about the actual episode soon and not just read you text from the screen for the next 20 minutes. I promise. The episode is pretty typical, right? Or prototypical. Spenny's taking it seriously, Kenny's being manipulative, and has a torpedo to shoot at Spenny. It's a sturdy framework, and this episode does both of those things well. That's kind of why I think it's such a good episode. They come up with a really good song for Spenny. It's ironic because he's working hard like a huge nerd on this song that's all about not wanting to read any books and just rock out. And then Kenny's song is also big and catchy. The evil of his cynicism is contrasted against the innocent voices of the children. The fact that he's not learning to be a conductor himself is funny. And then the torpedo. Right, I'll talk more about that when it happens. Kenny's got one baton in his hand, 2 on the counter, with 1 being broken. Looking at the old Romagny House of Music website, many of their batons are $30 to $40. So this is over $100 worth of baton he's picking up there. One guy's got like his glasses hanging from his mouth. One guy has blue leopard print wristbands and a sideways hat. One guy looks like he's too cool to be there at all. And one guy is Spenny, and then there's Jeff. I like that.
I'm here at the Westminster United Church. I have a choir.
I kind of expect with a thing like this that you end up with fewer kids than you started with. Just because some leave or can't make it or whatever. But there's like 30 kids here in the rehearsal, and I think that same amount in the actual show. I haven't checked one for one, but someone wants to do that, they could.
My friend, we have to beat him. What's best? Should we work on the chorus first? Get everyone okay with the
I like
chorus?
that this kid gives Kenny some very basic advice in like a sober tone, and Kenny's like, oh yeah, good idea. Sincerely, I like it. Like everyone in the room is on the same level. So let's talk about like ethics for a moment, right? I would love to talk to a Kenny's kid. There are like 30 kids here, and they may not know that someone out there wants to hear from them about their experience on the show. So, okay, why don't I reach out to them? How would I find them? I could find the church and assume this is actually that church's choir, and maybe I could find the names of the kids who were in the choir that year. And then they'd be nearly like 30 years old and have Twitters and Instagrams and stuff, right? But is that okay? Is that acceptable? It feels weird because I'm looking up children on the internet, but they're not children anymore. They might even be older than me, and their parents signed off on them being in the show, though maybe they didn't anticipate the future that we now live in when they did. Kenny says in the opening that Spenny has an advantage because he can play guitar, and then Spenny plays no guitar for the entire episode. This is random, very random, but I like to take things and try to assign them to like a framework. I'm a nerd, have you noticed? Anyway, I made a dumb little meme a while ago where I took clips of Kenny from KvS that each represent one of the 7 deadly sins, like Melvin as gluttony, him whipping Spenny as wrath, and so on. And I was thinking about that in this episode. Kenny shows envy when he mentions that Spenny can play guitar, and he can't. He shows pride when he wins, sloth when he makes Brendan write the song, but there's not really any gluttony, and thank God there's no lust. Are there any KvS episodes where Kenny or Spenny represent all 7 deadly sins, just within that one episode? This is a challenge for you guys. In Season 1, I think most convincing woman is pretty solid. Kendra represents lust, is a glutton for alcohol, envies Spenny for winning, is wrathful either for beating Spenny up at the end or for calling his uncle over during the competition. She says she cares what's in a man's pants, but she's jokingly referring to his wallet, which we'll call greed. There might be some sloth in there somewhere, not sure about pride. Anyway, you get the idea. I like games like that. They just keep you occupied when you're taking a long walk in the nice weather. Okay, so it's torpedo time. Kenny doesn't want Spenny to have a band. He could change the venue, he could change the time, he could make him think the venue was closed, he could have told him Spenny died. He could have done many things that don't involve impersonating Spenny. It's not like they know Spenny's voice. If Kenny needed any of that information to come from Spenny, he could have found someone who sounds enough like Spenny to call one of these very visible phone numbers. Please don't call those phone numbers. Anyway, I think art is what you do after all the work is done. So, if part of your job is writing someone's name on the side of a Starbucks cup, the art is whether or not you do it in all caps, or no caps, or with a smiley face, or whether you spit in it. Getting the name on the cup is the requirement, and the rest is gravy, or whatever it is they serve at Starbucks. I bring this up just to say that getting the band not to show up is the cold mechanical part. Cutting up footage of the show to impersonate Spenny is art. It's the cherry on top. I've tried to figure out where these clips are coming from. The lines we hear aren't really familiar to me. Like, this isn't footage that's in an episode that we've seen. But maybe from the outfits and timeline, someone could figure it out. I've always wanted to, but I haven't been able to. So that's another challenge for you.
You shouldn't go. You shouldn't go. Great.
I'm asking you as a favor, please.
Don't show up. Yeah, don't show up. Don't show up. Don't show up. Don't show up. Please.
This is Duncan Christie, who sometimes edits the show, though he didn't edit this episode. He also appears in the Better Commercial episode, when he talks to Spenny about whether kids find clowns scary. He also directed Spenny's mockumentary, Confessions of a Porn Addict.
I'm grab Spenny's cell phone, and I'm going to make the calls through his cell phone to every single one of his band members. There's a long shot.
So this is an interesting one for how else could this have ended. Kenny could call the band, and if they got suspicious and had Spenny's number or something, they would just call Spenny to confirm, and he would tell them that it was a trick and that they did need to show up for the concert. And then that would just make it actually a fair competition, and then it becomes whoever the judges liked more. Or maybe some of the band wouldn't have gotten the message, and then Spenny would just have a drummer or something, and that would be funny. Now that I think of it, couldn't Spenny have played the song himself on guitar as he sang? I mean, it would have been better than what he actually did. I guess he didn't bring a guitar with him. I want to say the Turkish version of Kenny vs. Spenny, Cenk Mi Erdem Mi, does a complete recreation of this episode, like almost beat for beat. It's the same, except for one major difference. At the very end, with no explanation, Turkish Spenny's band actually does end up showing up, and the Turkish Spennies, which is a hard thing to say, play his version of I Just Wanna, and the judges still pick Turkish Kenny. I think it's actually pretty bold of the real KvS to have Spenny recruit 4 guys and write a song for the first half of the episode, only to just abandon it off screen, so none of it pays off. And I don't think Turkish KvS was ballsy enough to do that themselves. Just like when Kenny's asking the kids how they want to practice the song, this moment really emphasizes how similar Spenny is to the kids. Like, he enters the boys' room, not the men's room, and then the kids outside look at Spenny and then the camera like, is this guy serious? Here's one more difference with the Turkish KvS episode. I had it translated into English, and then I subtitled it for a fan stream we did a couple years ago. So you could actually read into what was going on whenever there was an occasional deviation here or there. And at the end, for the humiliation, Turkish Spenny is sold into slavery wearing a burlap sack. I'm not even kidding. Like, such is life in Turkey, I guess. There was a pretty great reaction from the stream chat when they realized what was going on. It was hilarious.
Where the hell's my band?
You know the names.
Jeff, why are you at home?
So, does Kenny need to hit the voicemail? Like, if someone actually picked up, what would he do?
Just don't show up.
Impossible. Absolutely impossible.
I just spoke to my bass player, and he said that there's a phone call for me, a message on his machine saying that the gig is...
I like the way it goes from this side view of both of them to following Spenny as he confronts Kenny without explicitly accusing him of anything. Like, Spenny is bearing down on him, and you can see Kenny's eyes, and you know he's guilty, but he never loses eye contact with Spenny, and he just keeps repeating, from you, which is just so clever. Because without accusing him, Spenny does know it was him. And so Kenny isn't denying it. He just points to the most puzzling fact that Spenny can't explain. And that's totally unspoken. All the while, Kenny's kids, who have been trained to jeer at Spenny, are jeering. Even though they're watching like 2 adults having a very adult confrontation. And the 2 adults never acknowledge the kids jeering at Spenny. Just like the two adults never fully acknowledge what they both know, that Kenny fucked him. It's just so great. Again, this is showing that Spenny is no better or cleverer or maturer than these children. If Kenny had tried to learn an instrument or lip sync a generic song or whatever, this dynamic with the kids would be totally missing from the episode. I think Kenny and Spenny both do well with kids. And by that I mean Kenny does well and Spenny does poorly, which is a good thing. And that's why I think Who Do Kids Like Better is an underrated episode. And if there was ever another season of the show, I would love to see, like, who's the better substitute teacher. What would that episode look like, you ask? Maybe you didn't ask. I think they could take a class of kids about this age and, like, write a test that covers 2 subjects. Then the kids would take the test to establish their, like, baseline knowledge, what they know from the beginning. Then it would go on, like, a couple days. On the first day, Kenny would teach them history or something. And on the second day, maybe Spenny teaches them vocabulary or English, whatever the 2 subjects were. And then on the third day, the kids would take the test again, and presumably they will perform better than the first time, and you would measure that progress to tell who did better. Like, if they improved more in history than in English, Kenny would win, and vice versa. Except the twist is that on the first day, Kenny's just teaching them how to cheat. He looks for the kids who did the best on the initial test, makes them sit at the front, then he shows the other kids how to read their papers over their shoulders or something like that. And then he shows them how to do, like, intentionally bad on the vocabulary questions and be a nightmare in general the next day to Spenny. And then the next day, Spenny's terrorized by the children. Then they take the test, and in the end tally, the kids end up doing worse in Spenny's subject after his lesson than they did before, because Kenny taught them well. As a humiliation, Spenny would have to snort his own cum or something. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. It's hard to think of something gross that they haven't already done in some form or another. Like maybe he has to eat a bunch of chalk or put his dick in a pencil sharpener, so it's relevant to the episode's topic. Write in if you have a good idea for my Kenny versus Spenny fanfic.
Absolutely
Not true, totally untrue.
Has to be true.
I never
There's
saw
no way that all 4 of them wouldn't show up.
He's a liar. He's a liar. Kids, he's a liar. He's a liar.
I'm a liar. I'm a liar. I'm not a liar. I never lie. I don't lie. I tell the truth. All I'm left with is reading you the lyrics to my song, and I would appreciate if you kids gave me the respect that I gave you when you did your song and be quiet. Thank you very much. Again, the pacing was dun dun dun. Okay, it's very difficult to do without the band, but the lyrics went, I could read a book and learn all kinds of stuff. I could play guitar.
I already mentioned it in the beauty pageant commentary, but we have another I can't believe what I'm seeing gesture, where Kenny puts his hands on his face or his head.
And that repeats about 3 times. Then we go into the second verse. Lots of distortion, power, rock and roll. It was a great band. Unfortunately, you can't see it.
Spenny is just seething. It's horrible.
I lose all my money, honey, and get financial aid. But all I want to do all the time is, I just wanna.
If he had just brought a guitar,
Going to the bridge completely different. It goes.
he could have played it and sung the song instead of having to, like, explain
I go, I just want you.
the meta aspects of the song.
I want you, I want you. And then at the very end, the whole band comes in with the, I just wanna, I just wanna, I just wanna, I just wanna. And then I go, I just wanna beat Kenny. That was the song, and I'm very upset that you guys couldn't hear it. I worked very hard. Shut up. I worked very hard, and...
We should all applaud for Spenny. It's a very good song, everybody, really.
we would have rocked your socks off, believe me.
He's blaming everything on me.
You two were best friends.
Okay, guys,
Let's get this over.
Now, if I'm not wrong, Jack Tassi is the former bass player of the Vile Tones, which is a fairly well-known punk band. But he looks like a dad who loves golf now.
I'm sorry about your band. I'm sure you had a great song as well too, but I didn't get a chance.
I can't find anything about Billy Bryan. He's credited as a music producer, but I can't find him. His name is Billy Bryan, so it's hard to search for. You just get like Toronto yearbooks where two guys named Billy and Bryan are listed next to each other. If anyone has any ideas, let me know. Andrew Scott also has two first names, except he's a fairly well-known jazz guitarist, so I found him easily. He is still alive and well, and if it turns out Billy Bryan is a drummer, these judges could fill out a solid power trio. I'm actually pretty impressed with their credentials. Kenny's missing finger is very obvious here.
This was, without question, the lowest Kenny has ever sunk. The judges made me sick.
The judges just opted not to vote for the guy who didn't actually submit an entry, and yet they make him sick. So I guess the commentary is coming to a close now. We took more than a few detours along the way. I hope you enjoyed at least some of them. Like I said earlier, I'm a little rusty, and this episode's just so good, it's hard not to just say, this episode is so good for 20 minutes. I'm also going to tease something which I don't usually do. I didn't talk about some things in this episode because I'm going to be uploading a dedicated video sometime soon that covers even more of this episode. So if you felt this was particularly fluffy, that might be why. I'm being a bit cryptic because it's a tease and those are fun, but also I'm still not done falling down this rabbit hole, so I don't even know exactly how it's going to go. But I'm confident enough in what I have so far to say that there's more coming, and I think it's really cool. I'm excited. Even what I have now is super cool. So anyway, as always, thank you so much for clicking on this video and then listening to it. Take care, and I hope to see you soon.